Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to look at the VS or volume spike setup and look at that as an example on one of the Indian markets, the BankNifty on a 3-minute chart. But before we start looking at that, let's have a look at our risk disclaimer and just remind you all that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades were actually taken. They're just shown for illustration and training purposes only. Remind you all there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. All professional traders know and understand that losses can and will and do happen. I'll repeat that because it's very important to understand. Losses can and will and do happen. The trick is keeping the losses small. Right, let's come down and look at a chart. This is a 3-minute chart of the BankNifty. And what I'm doing is, actually I'll just change the time on this. If I do chart options, I'll just change it to our NSE regular trading hours. There we go. Just reload that chart for a second. Just wait while it reloads. There we go. So this is the regular trading hours for the NSE. Right, what is a volume spike? Well, a volume spike, and you can see we had two volume spikes here today, which is Tuesday, May the 16th. This is today. We had two volume spikes, one VS sell set up there, one VS buy set up there. So let's have a look at this one. If we go use our training mode and we come back to here, what is a VS setup? Right, well, let's move forward one bar, and you can see here the market made a wide range move. It made a wide range move on high volume, and this is cited by our red bar on our VS volume settings here. Now normally if there's a high volume move, it means that buyers are coming into the market, and in particularly if I look at the previous high, if I put a high tag on here, you can see that's a previous high. In fact, it's the previous day's high, so quite an important high. In other words, the market's gone through this on high volume. Most people would think this is buying. However, let's now put our DP resistance area on the chart. So we go back to this prior pivot high, right mouse click DP. As you can see, this high volume wide range bar has gone right into our major resistance, our DP resistance. So this gives MTPredictor customers a heads up that a reversal could well happen at this particular point here. Let's move forward one bar. And you can see that what happens is the market then backs off at this level. So in other words, this means that the high volume in the previous bar, i.e. this bar here, a high volume, was not actually buying. In this case, it was professional selling. Why? Because the market didn't carry on to new highs. If the market had carried on up, that means the high volume would have been buying. But because the market failed to follow through, it means that this was actually professional selling, and now the market's going to move lower. We have the advantage with MTPredictor because we know at what price level this all happens. So this then allows us to do a trade setup. So if we right mouse click over the red cell bar, do analysis, this then allows us to set up a potential trade. Because remember, for trade, we don't just need to know that professionals are now going to move the market lower. We need to know a target, and also we need to have a area of where the reversal is likely to happen, so to have our entry and our stop. So that gives us a position sizing to then allow us to come in and keep the initial risk small and under control. In other words, a trade setup here with a potential profit of 3.3R, or 3.3 times greater than the initial risk. If I move forward, you see it takes you into short trade. The market starts to decline. Whoops, I'll go back one bar. Starts to decline and then hits the target there very nicely. If I look at our MTP trend, we're now let's just have a look at that. Our MTP trend is weak, therefore we don't want to come in or come out at that particular target. So that's the MTPredictor VS setup. In other words, we're looking for a wide range bar that goes beyond a previous important, that's the point to stress, an important psychological high or low that then reverses at one of our DP support or resistance zones. We then allow us to then have a trade setup to take advantage as the professionals move the market in the opposite direction. Let's now clear everything off. And we're just reloading the data, just wait for a second. There we go. And here you can see we actually then had a VS setup in the opposite direction. If we look at our MTP trend was grey, and therefore this was one that you could take. So if I clear this all off, I'll clear that low off there. We can now right mouse click over this blue buy bar, do our analysis, and here's our trade again on the long side. This time again using position size to keep the initial risk small under control, and as you can see the market then rallied up into the first target there. This time though, when it reached the first target at that level there, you can see our MTP trend was just turning strong, so you could have used our ATR stop, which is our blue dots here, to trail your stop to then come out at that particular area there. So it would have been a very nice 3.5 hour profit. But even if you'd come out of the first target, again a 2.8 or almost 3 hour profit. And as you can see, that would have actually nailed the, the low of the day for you. Let's put this in context with our higher time frame DPs. Remember, it's always important to go to our higher time frame chart. A higher time frame chart is a time frame between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So if you're trading the 3-minute chart, the higher time frame would be the 15-minute. Again, remember, these levels are on the chart in advance. They're there before the market opens. So before today even opened, you could have gone back to this previous high, right mouse click, place the DP on, and as you can see, that caught that high with the first VS setup came in. I'll just use our trading mode again and take it back to there, and just to show you how this would have worked as well. The next support zone, go back to the previous low, which is here, right mouse click, do DP, and there it is. Can you see that's on the chart in advance? In other words, it's before the market even gets there. Let's step forward. Market comes down into there. You actually had a VS set up on your 15-minute chart as well. That then produced the low off which the market then rallied. We'll just load the data again and show you where that 15-minute support. As you can see, that nailed the low of the day. Let's now go back to our 3-minute chart and see how that looks on our 3-minute chart. So just bear with us while that just loads the data again. And here you can see our 15-minute DPs on your 3-minute chart. As you can see, caught that high there beautifully of in and around where your first VS sell setup came in. Market came down into large degree support, in which your next VS setup, a buy in this particular case, came in. So this then helps you when you're in this particular trade, when you get this Holy Grail TS3 Holy Grail trade setup. Because normally I suggest that when the MTP trend is black, you can look to stop and reverse. In other words, if you're long, the market trend is unsure, and therefore you could want to then potentially reverse as an opposing setup comes in. However, having this 15-minute support on your chart gave you added confidence that the MTP trend will be turning blue soon, because this grey MTP trend, in other words, telling you that the market is in the process or in the area of a reversal potentially happening, that is going to be support. It's going to be support because there's your 15-minute or higher time frame DP support. So in other words, when you come to this sell setup, you'd ignore it because you're coming off higher time frame support. In other words, the large degree trend is up. That gave you added confidence as well to then hold your short trade up into the high here. So hopefully that's been a good example of our VS or volume spike setup and how that unfolded today on a 3-minute chart of the BankNifty. And as you can see, that allowed you to pick that high very nicely and get a nice short trade down into the low, where we would have then had a new profitable, a new trade, a long trade that nailed the very bar of the low of the day for you, and catch a long trade up into at least that high, if not trailing it with our ATR stop just a little bit further. Also using our higher time frame DPs to give you advance warning of major support and resistance. So a good day for MTPredictor on the BankNifty today, which is Tuesday, May the 16th, in particular with that VS buy setup nailing the very low of the, or the very bar of the low of the day for you.